Like, why are we even here? Why are we doing this, right? To make money is part of it. I think that's a byproduct of going and doing the work, right? That's going to happen if you take these things fundamentally and you go and execute. I'm going to analyze that deal in 3 minutes on the back of a napkin, and I'm going to submit my offer sight unseen. This is the power of remote investing. This is the power of what you guys are going to be able to do after you learn how to invest in real estate remotely.
In the investment strategy of traditional versus remote, for your pros and cons, I see you put your pro for remote as better ROI. Is that standardly correct, or is that deal-wise, depending on the deal, correct?
Right. That's a great question. So first, before I answer that, I also want to comment about the deal you were looking at, okay? Because this is important for the whole group. So last night, Nate, being that it's a challenge, right? He started taking action steps. That's what I expect everybody to do this week. And he went out and he started to explore other opportunities. He found a 21-unit apartment building. He sent it over to me. But before we could even get into the detail, the deal was gone. This is why it's so important that you're not a perfectionist, which is really just a dressed up professional procrastinator, because in this business, when you hesitate, you lose. Not saying that Nate hesitated, right? He wasn't even he didn't even know he was gonna find that deal last night, right? But I'm saying that when you do have a deal, a viable opportunity in front of you, it's important that you get solid on being prepared. You gotta stay ready so you don't have to get ready, because for people like myself, when a deal come across, if it's a good deal, right, to Nate's point, I'm gonna analyze that deal in 3 minutes on the back of a napkin, and I'm gonna submit my offer sight unseen. This is the power of remote investing. This is the power of what you guys are gonna be able to do after you learn how to invest in real estate remotely, okay? And I think that's a perfect segue to answer your question, Nate. So the question is, why is it better ROI for remote investing? So nothing is all or nothing, right? Nothing is all or nothing. And so when I'm writing these pros and cons, I'm speaking more in generalities. So in general, there's going to be better ROI opportunities because, for instance, if I was relegated to invest in Orlando where I live, right, I would probably be like most investors in that market that's making 8, 10, 12% on their money, and they're happy about it, particularly because they invest in Florida. It sounds sexy. I guess it is kind of sexy. That's why I live there. But the sexiest thing to me is my money multiplying, right? And so I want to be able to take my show on the road, and I'm fortunate because of the way I invest that I can invest here in Michigan and multiply my money in ways that I just could never do in Orlando. And if I did, they would be more hit or miss. I couldn't consistently do that. So I can come in this market and consistently multiply my money, right? So when I said that, Nate, I meant that generally speaking, it's not that you couldn't get one-offs in your particular market, but for most people, if you live in certain sectors of the country, it's going to be challenging to consistently get the kind of yields that you're looking for.
In finding that potential deal yesterday, I had already sent it out to a realtor that I know in that state. I saw some deals that were in Detroit, Michigan. I saw some deals that were in Syracuse, New York. And I kind of started reaching out, not really to, hey, I know for sure I'm gonna buy something today or anything like that, but just kind of calling out to reach out to people that maybe are in that market. How do you build your team? Like, how do you decide who's the right realtor for you? Who's the right connect? Like, what's your process in kind of doing that? Because I feel like that's an important part.
Yeah, man. Great questions. So building out your infrastructure, okay? Building out your team is the most critical part into everything, right? Because obviously if you want to do this from afar, even if you're doing it in your backyard, but you want to be like Natasha mentioned in her homework, that, you know, she, being that she's got a family of 4, she would still prefer if she did it locally to still do it remotely to free herself up to tend to her family, right? So if you wanted to be able to leverage the model, then your team is everything, right? And so in pursuit of building that team, starting with a realtor I recommend that you call probably 20 to 30 of them. Okay. Not that you won't find 2 or 3 that you want to work with in that process, but number one is good to cold call, right? And get accustomed to talking to strangers, because that's who got your money. Strangers do, not the people that you know. We talked about that yesterday. So you want to get accustomed to running reps and talking to people, cold calling them, okay? You also, in that process, you're going to start to have a lot of different conversations, and some of those conversations are going to sound alike and some of them aren't. And then you have to delineate between those outlier of conversations. Is it something different about this individual, right? Do they got that it factor that I think aligns with me morally, ethically, and can buy into my vision and come alongside of me and support that, right? So it's important to widen the amount of people you talk to, because if you lazy, okay, and you talk to one and you like, this the one, well, how do you know if you never talked to 5? So you're making a short-sighted assumption that this is the person only because we wanted the instant gratification of saying the first person I called, we hit it off. Go call 5 and make sure that that one was who they were supposed to be, right? So it's a volume play. You got to get out there and run reps.